Compound movements build the vast majority of our muscle, and isolation movements are used to fill in the gaps. This is a concept that most really experienced lifters understand. It's something that's been known for decades, but even though this philosophy has always been well understood, a lot of newer lifters don't understand this. And so while this statement I'm making in this video might seem kind of funny to a lot of people who are listening, regulars are like, yeah, we already know this, but tons of people don't. And so they need to hear this. And you have people who are a little newer to lifting, people who sometimes maybe only been training a year. They may not know this, and I see this a lot. You'll see this to where people will be in the gym and they're thinking that the best way to get big, to build all their muscles, is to come in and try to isolate everything. Okay, and that's generally not the case. You will almost always have muscles that you have no need to isolate at all if your training is good, if your training is hard. So what people need to understand from an exercise economy perspective, big movements build a lot of muscle. Like, look at the big movements just for upper body you see in here. I'm not even showing my lower body stuff. You see me doing throughout this video some flat benching, some incline benching, weighted pull-ups, underhand grip barbell rows. If you think about the muscles involved, every single muscle in the upper body has been worked with only 4 exercises. And we need to be clear, every muscle has been worked all the way down to a little bit of side delt and even bicep. Okay, obviously the entire back and chest and all of that has been worked. Okay, so you also see me doing some curls in here. Why? Because this isn't enough for my biceps. And I think that's the take home that newer lifters need to look at. What you need to understand is that you're going to have certain muscles that maybe you care about more than others. Maybe the specific compound movements you hit might only give certain muscles maybe 60 or 70, maybe even 80% of the total stimulus that they need to grow optimally. Okay, right? Because maybe a lot of your pressing isn't hitting triceps at all. You might be working your entire chest, but maybe your triceps aren't being hit by the pressing you're doing as effectively, and you need some tricep work. So on and so forth. Maybe you're not doing big compounds that hit the side delts particularly well, so you need to throw a lateral raise of some type in for it. Okay, do you see where we're going with this? All right, you have that to look at. Then we have to look at individual genetics. In other words, if I take 3 different lifters with different genetics, different structures, and we give them the exact same program, using just big exercises, okay? They're all going to proportion different as a result of that, okay? They're all going to proportion slightly different. They are all not going to grow the exact same ratio of pec to tricep, of lat to bicep, of glute to quadricep, same size calves, right? Some of them are going to have nice, strong, decently balanced hamstrings. One of them might, and the other 2 might have weak hamstrings from the exact same 2 exercises, right, that we're doing. So this is the next thing that you have to look at. We should always base build off of big movements because they're efficient, they're effective, they have lots of carryover to strength as well. And I'm not saying isolation movements don't make you stronger, because they can. They absolutely can if they address weak links on the big movements, right? If your triceps are limiting your bench press, of course doing some tricep work will probably make your bench go up. And then that will correspond to any movement in the real world where you have to exert strength in that sort of pattern. It could be pushing, right? So they still do these things, but everyone's going to proportion different. But the thing to remember is that from an exercise economy perspective, doing most of your training with big movements makes sense. Why? Because they all work multiple muscles. Okay, every one of them work multiple muscles. They even work muscles you're not thinking about. Because how many guys are okay, I get it, chest and triceps. Okay, yeah, see, there's some delts involved, but what about other support muscles in your trunk and your torso? Same thing with pull-ups versus doing a smaller movement. rows versus a smaller movement. How many muscles are there through the whole torso that the guys aren't thinking about? How about your intercostals, your serratus, all along the rib cage? How about throughout the back, your teres minor, your lower traps, your rhomboids? How about your spinal erectors? You got T-spine erectors, lower spinal erectors on the lower back, right? You have all these different muscles, and oftentimes we're not thinking about them. And then so you've got to ask, are they being worked? Well, I don't know. I haven't thought about it. And that's kind of the point. When you're doing enough big exercises, squat and deadlift variations, different types of chest pressing. Notice I didn't say it had to be a bench. I mean, it could be bench. Maybe should be bench. Pull-ups, rows. All right, if you're doing these things, you don't have to think about every single last small muscle because it's all being worked. What you then have to worry about is, where do I need more work to be where I need to be? Right? Because different people have different goals. Some people have more strength goals. Some people have more aesthetic and physique goals. But the idea is the same. And anyone who says, well, you don't see the best bodybuilders and fitness models doing all these big movements, of course you do. What do you mean? That's their bread and butter also. Just like the strength athlete, just like the football player. Right? They all do these things. They may do more isolation work because they have more weak links or specific heads they need to bring up. Right? That is what you're looking at. That's what we're looking at for them. They want to bring up each individual muscle. But let's say a muscle has 3 heads and you can work 2 of those 3 heads with a big movement very effectively, along with 2 other muscles at the same time. Well, that's a winner, even from a physique perspective, right? Because now you only have to come in and worry about that 3rd head. It's the only one you have to worry about. You don't have to try to find a way to isolate all 3. You're cold. Unless you just need to disproportionately develop that muscle. But even then, you're part of the way there. So they're effective. They're good use of your time. They also make us more coordinated, stronger, work all these other support muscles sometimes throughout the body, the ones that we're not thinking of. They should be the foundation of our training. Then afterwards, you come through and say, okay, where do I need more work for my specific goals and for my structure? And then you do that. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.